All right.
Mr. Villano.
All right. First, I'd like to thank you for letting me come into your classroom and observe you. I know it's a little hectic first block with kids coming in and out, and kids asking questions, homework, etc. And I thought you did an excellent job getting the lesson flowing.
Thank you.
As we discussed in the pre-conference, we were going to use Madeline Hunter's planning, and we were going to evaluate based on all the steps of that planning process. Okay? So I'd like to start by asking how you thought the overall lesson went.
I think it went pretty well. I think the kids were engaged and they behaved quite well. They didn't need a lot of redirection. Their understanding, from my questioning of them along the way, like informal questioning, seemed to be they seem to be understanding, and they seem to also be able to answer a lot with regards to prior knowledge, things that we had already covered earlier in the chapter. So I thought it went pretty well.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was the primary objective? I noticed that you had them written on the board, and you talked about it in your anticipatory set. But just to be clear, I want to see that I got what I thought was the primary objective.
Right. So this whole chapter has to do with soil, and then we get into food production later.
Okay.
So what this portion is discussing the issue of soil erosion and how we're losing soil. And as a growing population, as a population continues to grow, I should say, having a stable soil system to grow food on, to feed that growing population is extremely important. So we discussed, how the soil is being depleted from one year to the next, how that is an issue with regards to future food production, but then also what the main portion of this section was, what we were discussing in class that day, was how we could control that soil erosion. We call it soil conservation. So that was what we went through, different methods that we can use to conserve the soil.
So that's what I was seeing, the methods. So the terracing and all that were different methods to prevent the soil erosion.
Yeah.
Because I noticed it was soil erosion on the board, and then I saw that you were getting into terracing and stuff, and I wanted to see how they tied together. Very good. Thank you. Using hunters, because we used the model here, right?
Right.
How do you think you did? Walk me through the progression of your lesson, and tell me which ones you think you hit and which ones you didn't, and kind of how.
Okay, so as far as the anticipatory set, I think that the lead up to the lesson in terms of the what makes a soil and how long it takes to build soil, as well as the just that quick review from the beginning about the importance of soil. I think that was good for the anticipatory set. The objectives, we did cover all those different soil conservation methods, and I think adequately. So I think that we met our objectives and purpose. With regards to input, I definitely worked hard to explain each concept in several ways. Just the contour planting, for example. I like to draw that connection with contouring of makeup that a lot of girls do these days. They contour their makeup, having to do with the elevations of their face. We also talked about contour maps that the kids have seen before. So just an example of an input. Modeling the diagrams that we did for each type of soil conservation method, I think was a good method of modeling. The checking and understanding, that was done by informally asking questions of the students. Sometimes they raise their hands, sometimes they called out. And I'm also, formally giving them a test on this curriculum. So as far as checking understanding, that's where I land with that. And then, with regards to the guided practice and the independent practice, I know I didn't do either of those during this lesson, but those are things that I did later on with, you know, at later times.
Okay. Excuse me. I thought you did an excellent, I'm going to walk through my little notes that I made. I thought with the anticipatory set, you did an excellent job of setting up the lesson for them. I knew exactly where I was headed when we started that lesson. Now, I wasn't there for the pre-stuff, but you did review it so that they had that knowledge, and I thought you did an excellent job there. As far as the objectives and purpose, like I said, it was on the board, and you stated what the purpose was. It was about this erosion, soil erosion, and trying to conserve the soil. I thought you broke down the lesson very well into very componentable parts where the people could understand. And what I really liked, well, the modeling was great too, because you showed different diagrams to illustrate how the contours would be used and the advantages and disadvantages of each. What I really thought was great was the check it when you were asked the question, what would you use? By the student.
Right.
What method would you use, and how you answered that I thought was perfect, because it depends.
Yeah.
It depends on the piece of property.
Right. Yeah.
And I know you're a gardener.
Yeah. Right.
And what you use may not be what would work for me on
Right.
my piece of property.
Yeah.
So it's based on the piece of property, and you kind of
Yeah.
use that almost as a review for the kids
Right.
of all the different types, without the kids even knowing that you were using it for a
Yeah.
review. And
I
I
was
thought that was
excited.
very good,
Yeah.
because it is dependent upon the piece of property. Some are flat, some
Right.
aren't flat.
Right. I was excited that she asked the question because, you know, just to me, I felt like she was interested and she was engaged. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
you know.
And I think when the kids were answering, I'm going to get to the check to understand it, because I got a little idea for you here.
Mhm.
The checking for understanding, some of it was choral,
Mhm.
where you throw it out and they answer you back.
Right.
And then some of it was specific.
Yeah.
I particularly liked how you let other kids build upon other kids, and it really kept them engaged. An idea, though, I would have for you here would be maybe give them a separate sheet of paper at the beginning of class
Mhm.
and tell them, this is just for a specific few questions that I'm going to ask you, and then they could answer those questions on that piece of paper.
Right.
And then you have 3 or 4 questions to make sure that the kids do understand, and that all of them understand, rather than, you know, not necessarily knowing who's answering and if they're answering correctly when they're
Yeah.
calling out inquire. You know, you understand?
Yeah, I agree, because I don't really, you know, I don't really have a great way of detecting if any of the students didn't answer any questions throughout the whole class.
Right.
So yeah, that would keep make sure I know who's engaged and what each of their understandings are. That makes sense.
Okay. Good. But I thought you asked a lot of good questions throughout, and you asked them frequently. So I think that's excellent, because you can get the feedback then that you really need. Thought you were questioning. Let me see what else we have. When we got down, so I was with you on all the top ones. Now I did notice that you did say for the guided practice, I know we were running short on time,
Right.
and I noticed you did say that you were going to cover that with them in lab.
Yeah. So yeah, during the recitation,
Yeah.
the lab recitation. Yeah.
So I left that one blank, because I'm assuming that that's how you were going to follow through with that one.
Right. Yeah, we worked on diagrams and for each of the different types of erosion control methods, and you know, I walked around and made sure that they were, you know, on point with, you know, what the actual benefits of each of those were. You know, how the water's going to flow and potentially move the soil, and how the wind might blow and potentially move the soil, with or without those different methods in place.
Right. The other thing was the independent practice.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't see that at all. So that was the only no that I gave you.
Yeah.
Now I'm sure, like you said in this part of the post observation here,
Yeah.
you're going to test them.
Right.
There's going to be other
Yeah.
methods for you to use.
I did put that, you know, this is all on the chapter test, but also I did have some case studies from different places around the world where they did, have erosion they have had erosion problems, and where they have used these erosion control techniques. So they're reading case studies and then answering questions regarding those case studies, and having to do with, why did these erosion problems happen, and how did those different methods work to help stave them off.
Right, right. So do you think, let me ask you this, do you think the objectives were met?
I think they were met. I think that you're right about the checking the understanding. I wasn't sure at the end of that lesson that each student actually, did know all the different pieces. So I didn't have a module in place to really check that at the end of the lesson where that would be beneficial. But we definitely covered everything. I know that many of the students were definitely engaged and had a good understanding because they were answering the questions. But I think having that module in place to assure that everyone understood would be better.
Okay. Let me ask you one last, well, I got two more questions for you. I got one more.
Sure.
One thing I noticed while I was in there, you were using the projector, which is great, and you had the lights off.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and this might be nitpicking a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but it was difficult. Now, I know my eyes are older than the teenagers,
Mm-hmm.
but it was difficult for my note taking, and I don't know if they've ever made mention of that to you,
Yeah.
or if there's a...
I mean, I think it's a problem actually having the lights off like that. I tend to agree. If my projector was brighter, like if I had a brighter system in place, then I wouldn't have to turn the lights down to to see like the videos that I played. With when the lights are on, you can't really see the detail in the video. A lot of the videos I bring up from online, the quality is not great. So then with the lights on, it's even worse. So I do have the front lights dimmed a bit, but it's not like really good enough to see some of the things I want to show.
Like I said, that's a kind of a nitpicky thing, but just with the kids, they're writing in this, so I wanted to...
I think I agree it's an issue. I'd like if I could get a brighter system in the room, like a brighter projector or something else to show, that I could leave the lights on.
Right.
I think that would be ideal.
Last question.
Yeah.
If you were able, or what area, if you were able to teach the lesson again, what area do you think you'd focus on, or what adjustments would you make?
Well, I'd like the adjustment you suggested. I think that was really good. The only other thing is I would like to add a hands-on component to it. I think that kids would really engage in that and enjoy it. So that's something that I'm trying to do some research and see if either there's kits that are available or
Where they're actually doing the planting?
where they might be able to
One group would do one type, one group would do another type, maybe?
That would be that I think if I were to have each group maybe design a system, a model, if you will, of each one,
I like that
and
idea.
run it, then I think they would be a lot more engaged. I mean, it's a little expensive in time, so I'd have to make it, very concrete, right? And we don't want to take, days and days and days, right?
Right, yeah.
But that's something I'm working on right now. I'd like to do that.
I like the idea.
Thanks.
Any other adjustments you would?
Off the top of my head, I can't really think of any other adjustments. No, at this time.
I thoroughly enjoyed the lesson.
Thanks.
And like I said, I appreciate you letting me coming in and seeing it. And I thought the kids were engaged throughout. And I thought it was a really nice lesson. I learned stuff that I didn't know from
Thanks.
about crop rotation and stuff and all that. So it was beneficial to me as well. So maybe I'll start gardening.
Cool. Hey.
I'll have
All
this
right.
up, and then so you can sign it, and then it can go through the proper channels.
All right. Cool.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Dave.
Thank you.
All right. I think we.